cool was I, and logical, keen, calculating, perspicacious, acute, and astute. I was all of these. My brain was as powerful as a dynamo, as precise as a chemist's scale, and as penetrating as a scalpel. And to think of it, I, only 18.
Love is a fallacy.
By Max Schulman. It is not often that one so young has such a giant intellect. Take, for example, P.T. Birch, my roommate at the university. Same age, same background, but dumb as an ox. A nice enough fellow, you understand, but nothing upstairs. Emotional type, unstable, impressionable, and worst of all, a faddist. To be swept up in every new craze that comes along, to surrender oneself to idiocy just because everyone else is doing it. This, to me, is the acme of mindlessness. Not, however, to Petey.
I want a raccoon coat. Should have known they'd come back. Like a fool, I spent all my money on textbooks. And now I can't get a raccoon coat.
Petey, why? Look at it rationally. Raccoon coats are unsanitary. They shed, they smell bad.
You don't understand. It's the thing to do. Don't you want to be in the swim?
No.
Well, I do. I'd give anything for a raccoon coat. Anything.
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 It so happened that I had the raccoon coat that my father had worn back in 1925. But it also happened that Petey had something I wanted. I refer to his girl, Polly Espy. I had long coveted Polly Espy. Let me emphasize, my desire for this young woman was not emotional in nature. I wanted Polly for a shrewdly calculated reason. I was in law school. In a few years I'd be out in practice. All of the successful lawyers I'd observed were married to beautiful, gracious, intelligent women. With one omission, Polly fitted these specifications perfectly. Beautiful she was, gracious she was, intelligent she was not. In fact, she veered in the opposite direction. But I believe that under my guidance, she would smarten up. Petey, are you in love with Polly Espy?
I think she's a keen kid. I don't know if you call it love. Why?
Are you going steady? Do you have any sort of formal arrangement or anything like that?
What are you getting at?
The coat.
Holy Toledo. Holy Toledo!
Would you like it?
What do you want for it?
Your girl.
Polly? You want Polly?
Yes.
Never!
Alright, if you don't want to be in the swim, I guess that's your business.
It's not as if I was in love with Polly or anything like that.
That's right.
What's Polly to me or me to Polly?
Not a thing. Here, try on the coat. Oh, he looked like a mound of dead wreck.
It's fine.
Deal.
Deal.
I had my first date with Polly the following evening. First, I took her to dinner.
Gee, this is a delish dinner.
Then, I took her to a movie.
Gee, this is a Marvy movie.
Then I took her home.
Gee, I had a 7-shade time.
I went home to my room with a heavy heart. First, she had to be taught to think. Polly, tonight we're going to talk.
Oh, Trev!
One thing I will say for this girl, you would go far to find another so agreeable.
What are we going to talk about?
Logic.
No.
Logic is the science of thinking. Before we can think correctly, we must first learn to examine the common fallacies of logic. The first fallacy we'll discuss is called ad misericordia. Now listen, a man applies for a job. When the boss asks him what his qualifications are, he replies that he has a wife and 6 children at home. The wife is a helpless cripple. The children have no shoes, no clothes. There are no beds, no coal, and winter is coming.
Oh,
Now,
this is awful. That's awful.
why yes, it's awful. But it's no argument. You see, the man never answered the boss's questions.
You
about his
have a
qualifications.
handkerchief?
questions about his qualifications. Instead, he appealed to the boss's sympathy, therefore committing the fallacy of ad miscordia. Do you understand? I think we better call it a night. We'll have another session tomorrow evening?
I had a perfectly terrific evening.
I went glumly home to my room. My dear, the next fallacy we've discussed is called hypothesis contrary to fact.
Sounds yummy.
Listen, if Madame Curie had not happened to leave a photographic plate in a drawer with a chunk of pitch blende, the world today would not know about radium.
True, true. Did you see that movie? That Walter Pigeon is so dreamy. Oh, he just fractures me.
If you can forget Mr. Pigeon for a moment, I would like to point out that this statement is a fallacy. Perhaps Madame Curie would have discovered radium at some later date. Perhaps any number of things would have happened. You can't start with a hypothesis that is not true and draw any supportable conclusions from it.
You know, they ought to put Walter Pigeon in more movies. I hardly ever see him anymore.
Just one more chance. But just one more. There's a limit to what flesh and blood can bear. The next fallacy is called poisoning the well.
How cute.
Two men are having a debate. The first man gets up and says, "My opponent is a notorious liar. You can't believe a word he's going to say." Now, Polly, think hard. What's wrong?
It's not fair. It's not a bit fair. What chance has the second man got if the first man called him a liar before he can even start talking?
Right.
Right?
100% right. The first man has hamstrung his opponent. He has poisoned the well before anyone can drink from it. You see, my dear, these things aren't so hard. All you have to do is think, concentrate, examine, and evaluate. Come, my dear, let's review everything we've learned.
Fire away!
I began a long and patient review of everything I had taught her. Poisoning the well, hypothesis, contrary to fact, hasty generalization, ad misericordiam. I kept hammering away without let up. I had made a logician out of Polly. She was a fit wife for me, a suitable mother for my well-heeled children, and a grand hostess for my many mansions. I decided to acquaint her with my feelings at our very next visit. Polly, tonight we'll not discuss fallacies.
Aww.
My dear, we have now spent 4 entire evenings together, and it's clear we are well matched.
Hasty generalization.
I beg your pardon?
Hasty generalization. How can you say we are well matched on the basis of only 4 dates?
The dear child had learned her lessons well. My dear, 4 dates is plenty. Polly, I love you. You're the whole world to me. The moon, the stars, the constellations of outer space. Please, my dear, say you will go steady with me. For if you will not, life will be meaningless. I will languish. I will refuse my meals. I will wander the face of the earth, a shambling, hollow-eyed hulk.
Ad misericordiam.
Well, Polly, you certainly have learned your fallacies.
You're right.
And who taught them to you, Polly?
You did.
That's right. If I hadn't come along, you would have never learned about all these fallacies. You owe me something, don't you?
Hypothesis contrary to fact.
Will or will you not go steady with me?
I will not.
And why not?
Because this afternoon I promised Petey I'd go steady with him.
The rat! You can't go steady with him, Polly. He's a liar. He's a cheat. He's a rat.
Poisoning the well and stop shouting. I think shouting is a fallacy too.
All right. You're a logician. Let's look at this logically. How could you possibly choose Petey Budge over me? Look at me. A tremendous student. A brilliant intellectual. A man with an assured future. Look at Petey. A knothead. A jitterbug. A man you'll never know his next meal's coming from. Can you give me one logical reason why you should go steady with Petey Budge?
Certainly. got a raccoon.